Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindset Over Matter. I'm your host, Gabby Gooding, and today I am so pleased to be joined by Andrea Steigler to help us shift our mindset on the topic of self-healing. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you very much for your invitation, and I'm so happy to be here and share my experiences about how we can heal ourselves.
Awesome. I'm so happy that you're here as well, because I know our last conversation was so interesting. It was really challenging for me to think of how we can contain it to just a couple of topics. But I remember an interesting thing that we have in common is that we both have experience working in the corporate world, but have also realized that there is a big piece missing, which is not often talked about in those circles. And that's partly the topic of self-healing, which really can be the gateway to living our best life. But it seems like it's not talked about, and that's why I'm hoping to have a great conversation about it, to show that it applies to everybody and it can help all of us live a better life. So just to get us started, I'm curious to know, how did you become interested in self-healing and energy work and all of these things? Why is it so important to you?
Yeah, well, it started when I was 30, but when I started to be conscious about that. But if I just look back from my current state, that it started also in my childhood, but I was not aware of it. And I was a very sick girl, so I was always sick. And when I was a teenager, I had a really serious sickness for 2 years, and I was, from hospital to hospital. And at the end, a Russian chiropractor helped me fully heal. And so when I was 30, and I was work alcoholic, and I was living in a long-term relationship, and somehow I felt I want to have a baby. And so I remember it was a January afternoon. I was on the couch in the living room, and this deep inner feeling just came that I want to be a mother. And I started to talk with my fiance, and finally we were not at the same page, so I decided to move forward. And then in that year, so many other things happened with me when it led me to start to look at my life on a different perspective. And I was living so much in the material world, and I was just chasing, the success. And always I also worked so much, and I was very successful there, but somehow was as you said, something was missing, and I was searching for what was missing. And this is how I found different kind of healing modalities, and I just started to go on that way.
Interesting. So what types of clients do you work with, or people do you work with currently?
Yeah, currently I'm working mainly with women who are at that stage when I was, searching for something. Something is missing, either in a relationship. So they had the pattern with abusive or toxic relationships, or if they couldn't manage their growth in their lives, so they were imbalanced somehow. And most of the time, their physical body is also reacting somehow, especially with female organ problems or fertility problems, or very kind of like cysts or myomas or endometriosis or vaginism or vulvodynia, or orgasmic problems, so they had no orgasm at all, or if they don't feel they cannot connect with their feminine part, or if they have some problems with their body image. So it's a really big variety. But what I found is always, the source and the root is always somehow different. But we need to go back to our childhood and also our generational patterns.
Yeah, and I find that really fascinating, because it makes sense to me that going back to your childhood might be an easier one, although for some it's not that easy to access and to work through. But even more so, the generational patterns, I think, are ones that are, it's kind of like you're another level removed from those, or several levels removed from those sometimes. So I'm really curious, what is that process like, that we actually start becoming aware of those generational patterns, and how do we start to heal them?
Yeah, so most of the time when we are saying that I don't want to do this like my mom did with me, right? Or I don't want to attract the same guy as my father was. So we need to find what is bothering me in my mother and in my father, and in their relationship, and also what I felt that I was not received in my childhood. For example, we all need love. We are seeking for love, and or also attention. So these two definitely it will turn out for everyone. And we felt that I was not loved in a way I wanted. Even my parents gave me everything, but I didn't feel that my mom was with me emotionally, that my father played with me enough. And somehow this missing part is just growing and growing inside of us.
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure there are parts of what Freud was teaching back in the day that align with that, right? Where the relationships in your childhood and the influence of your mother and your father are so strong that it's definitely worth attending to. Now, I'm just curious, how I want to help bridge the gap between, this is really important when it comes to our personal relationships, let's say. So if I'm looking for a partner, but I want to make sure that partner is not like, my mother or my father, then I can see how this applies very much. But why would you say that it's important to do this work for other parts of our life? So, why would somebody who maybe is struggling in their career be interested in doing this type of work as well?
Because we all have some mother wounds and father wounds. We all have some childhood traumas. So I can say that in the world there is no person who hasn't experienced any kind of childhood traumas or abuse. Even just a simple one, verbal abuse. So we are not thinking about that, abuse. We are thinking about the physical and the sexual abuse most of the time. But every single day we are receiving some verbal abuse, which means that a criticism which is kind of like triggering us or painful for us, or we cannot handle, and or which is like you don't do this because you are stupid, or you are not enough good, or something like this. So it means that we are keeping all of this memory, and there is a blueprint in our body, in our cells, all of these memories. Even in our conscious mind, we are not remembering for that, or even we are using different kind of healing methodologies, and we haven't remembered yet. But our memory, our body memory, is absolutely there. And this is how when you want to react to someone differently, and some automatic reaction is coming from the past. For example, someone is shouting on you, and then you are just freezing. It means that even, it's not relevant that, that he's shouting at me, but what can I do? If I'm going back to my childhood freeze mode. But basically, if you feel that you wanted to react on a different way, or you are triggered, or you cannot respond on a way you wanted, it means absolutely in the present, it means that you have something in the past, which when your reaction was freeze, or you felt that you really wanted to run away from the situation because you couldn't handle, when you have no voice to react. And these are absolutely the reactions from our childhood. And this is how we need to go back to our body memory to see what happened. And if we find the roots of this, then this helplessness, this freeze, this anger, what we are carrying, can be fully released, and you can be aligned. You can be in your body. You don't you don't be afraid of, you are not afraid of being your body at all. Because
Right.
most of the time when we are a little girl or a little boy, we were scared, because we were scared also that we were not enough good. We were scared we didn't have enough love or attention or care. Or most of the time we need to grow up really quickly, and we missed our childhood when, when we could be very, very open and discovery and curious to the world. And our childhood memories and also our bodies are looking for to find and go back and kind of like fulfill this emptiness.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that's the definition of trauma to some extent, that you experience something that you're not prepared to deal with yet. And maybe as a child, you don't have the tools yet emotionally or just physically in the world to deal with a situation. And the interesting thing that I'm learning is that you can try to suppress your feelings, but they will never really the problem doesn't go away until you address it and work through it. And even in, like you said, we have different reactions that might come out in relationships, even at work, in our everyday lives, where we either freeze or maybe it affects our beliefs that we have about ourselves. For instance, I'm not worthy of a good, loving relationship, or I'm not worthy of a promotion at work. And we do hold on to these things, and it comes from a place that is subconscious, especially the freezing thing, right? It's such a fascinating phenomenon, in my opinion, because even though we know that we should maybe say something or do something, our body literally just freezes up and we don't know why. And so my question is, I think I might have a guess as to the answer, but I would just like to ask you, is your subconscious the same thing as your body memory, or are they different?
This is the same. This is the same. Like, the iceberg, what you could see over the water, it's a conscious mind. It's around 5 to 7% of the total. And what you cannot see under the water, it's in the body. And I can say usually, in our head, it's our conscious mind, what we remember, and this more than 90% is leading our reactions. And how we know that we are carrying traumas. It's the answer is really simple. If you have these automatic reactions, or if you have some routines, what you cannot or patterns, what you cannot change or turn around or turn on the way, how you want to live a healthier or a better life, then it means that something is there in your traumas, in your past traumas, or mother and father wounds. And also most of the time it's a hidden mother wounds when we cannot be, or we are not feeling enough worthy for the success, or if there is a plateau, it's absolutely a mother wound. So we can go back and find that belief systems, or that kind of painful memories which leads us to not feeling that we are not worthy enough.
Right. Yeah. So just to follow up on that, how do you actually work with your clients to access their body memory? Is it just through conversation and trying to work through their memories and things like that, or are there other practices that are involved in that?
I'm working holistically. So definitely the talk therapy. We are starting a talk therapy, because going deep, it needs that the mind should feel safe, and then we can go deeper in the body memory. I'm using more 100 different modalities and techniques and tools to find the best one in the perfect, in the moment, in the right moment, when we can work on with the body memory. I can also work in person and also online, because for over 20 years I've been experiencing kind of like the energies, and I'm also feeling so deeply the other person's emotions, or in different ways I can also get the information to understand better what is the process. And we are using also the breath, the movements, the sounds, and also the all the senses. And we are going deep in the body memories in the in-person session. Everyone is in their, I mean, they are still in a conscious level, but we are going really, really deep in body memory. And most of the time, it's when they want to move suddenly, they feel that, oh my God, I feel that I'm in conscious, but I can move really, really slowly, or there is a dizziness or something. So it's very interesting that how our body memories, and also with the pain. So if there is a pain in our body, it's absolutely a sign that we need to go there. We need to find and hear the message of this pain. And it's not normal that we are feeling pain in our body, because the pain is always kind of like the guidance for us to go to the root of the message.
Yes, and I've read over the last few years that there's more and more research that supports the fact that our emotions are very much tied to our physical ailments that we have and problems. So there was one study that looked at the incidence of a certain type of cancer even, and also personality traits of that group of people. And what they were looking for was whether these people were more likely to bottle up their emotions and not really talk about things when they were bothering them. And it turns out that there was a correlation between those two. So if you are, holding on to a lot of your emotions and your stress, your body doesn't really know what to do with it. It has to express it in some kind of way. And so it seems that in some ways it will actually express it as an illness. So to your point, we have to listen to the message that our body is sending us is A, we're not okay. B, I've also seen some research that shows that depending on which part of the body is not okay, that also can give you some information about what it is that is bothering you. So for instance, I think they found that there was some groups of people that had thyroid problems or throat problems or chest problems, and that had a lot to do with the fact that they felt like they didn't have a voice, for instance, and that they were always being silenced, in earlier times of their life. So it's fascinating to me that there is this relationship. So even from a location perspective on your body, you can learn a lot probably about the source of the pain and the stress.
I also found the suppressed emotions and in holding different part of the body, but it's also a kind of like it's much more complex, but it's really good start to go with the emotions, because all we learned to suppress not only just the negative emotions, but the positive ones as well. And most of the time when we don't want to feel again these negative emotions, the sadness, the anger, because it's not accepted in certain circumstances, because most of the time it's connected. So for example, just when I was a little girl, something good was happened with me, and I was really happy, and I really wanted to share with my parents, and they were just talking, and I was running the room, and I said, yeah, look, this happened, and I'm so happy about this. And then what was the adults' reaction? Just shut out. The adults are talking right now. Go back to your room, and we will come later. And what I learned, that I cannot share my happiness, and even I got some punishment with that, and I don't want to receive punishment. Therefore, I cannot express my happiness either.
Right.
And most of the time, these two, and this is how I'm also working with the orgasmic problems or infertility problems. but the scarcity and the so many negative patterns and pain and losses and so many negative package with that. And my mind doesn't want to express, and also when going through again the negative, therefore I cannot allow the positive either.
Right. Yeah, and that's fascinating how, we can do the work in one area and it can have effects on other parts of our life as well. And I think one of the negative emotions that we tend to suppress, or that maybe not suppress, but that we don't know how to deal with properly, I think, because we're never taught how to deal with it properly, is grief. And I know that you've spoken about how you help people with the grief recovery process. And I'm curious to see if you could expand on what are the steps in the grief recovery process. What type of work do you do with people to work through that? Because I think we experience grief in a lot of different ways every day, not just with death, which is what we typically associate it with, but even just chapters of our life ending, a relationship ending, just these things that happen in regular life. And it does come with some kind of grief. For instance, if you lose a friend, or you choose to move away from a toxic partner, although it's the better thing for you, there are still negative emotions and grief that exists, and we don't know how to manage it. So I'm wondering if you have anything to share about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's because we are experiencing grief in so many other ways, as you just mentioned. And also I want to add also that we are moving to another apartment or another city or another country, or we are changing our job. This is also a grief process. Anything when we are letting something out, something is changing in our life. It's a grieving process, and then it comes and goes in waves. So it's very important to make some rituals around that, to make some kind of like just light a candle and just remember the good and the bad things around the situation or the person. And then when we can let go, we are creating space for the new, because our life is as you mentioned, that every single day there is a changing and there is a letting go something, and then open up for a new opportunities, the new things, the new relationships, having the blueprint in our bodies again. So this is something similar to the traumas, because our body will remember for the good and the bad things as well. And if we are not putting in the right spot and right place in our mind, and also in our body, and also in our emotions, in all levels, then it will come back. It will come back again, and there will be a cycle until we are not facing that.
Yeah. What I like about what you said is that if you want to move forward and you're experiencing grief, it is, I like what you said about the ritual and lighting a candle and sitting with the memories of the person, place, or thing for a little bit. And that's sort of a gateway to help you let go. Because I think this is something that I misunderstood very much. And when I would try to move on from, let's say, a relationship, a job, or a city or something, my go-to was to try to ignore all of the memories and push them away, when that doesn't, the feeling is still stuck there somewhere, because I'm sure there's a part of me that wants to revisit them just a little bit, in order to actually be able to let go. So that's, I'm really happy that you worded it that way, because I think I don't think I'm the only one that reacts that way. I think it's a little bit counterintuitive that in order to let go of something, I actually have to face it first, right? So that's really important. Now, just before we wrap up, Andrea, and thank you so much for everything you've shared so far, I did want to ask, if people wanted to learn more about the work that you do and keep up with all of the great things that you're doing, where can they go to find you online? I know you have a masterclass as well, which is really exciting. I don't know if you'd want to comment on that. But in general, where could people find you online?
Yes, you can find me on Girish Andrea, in Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And I also have a website, an Empress Co website, and I also have a freebie what I want to share with you, and it's about that how we can feel safe. And in my trauma healing work is the first key element, that we are finding the safety inside, because this is how we can create new patterns over the previous ones, which where we couldn't feel safe. So because most of the time when the abuse or some kind of wounds or trauma happened with us, or the losses, then we didn't feel safe. And this is how we can I think this is the first step, that we can create safety. And I would like to just one more thing, just one more reaction that's around the grief, because it's also very important to stop, because we can run further, because sometimes it helps us to really go further, but we need a moment when we need to stop and do this recalling and this remembering, and even a very simple ritual to remember, because if we are just suppressing it, it will be there until we are not stopping. So this is one very, very important message for especially women, and not just women but men as well, to if you have any losses or pain what you haven't faced before, then just even if you are not able to do by yourself, then go for a specialist and help, and ask for help to do this, because you are carrying until you are not facing with that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a beautiful message. And, we are all worthy of taking the time to invest in all of this, because like we started out with today, it does help us live a more, a more fulfilled life, a more aligned life. We will get more out of life if we allow ourselves to. And I think, not to make anyone feel bad, it's perfectly natural and normal that we respond to these different negative and positive emotions in these ways. But it's good to know and important to know that there are people out there that can help us work through all of our body memory and our traumas, and because we all have it. And the more and the better that we can address it, the more we're going to get out of life, right? So thank you for sharing that message. Now, I think that's a great place to end it, with that beautiful message, Andrea. Thank you so much for this conversation. I do like to also thank our listeners, as always, for your time and attention. Please make sure to check us both out online. I will include all of the links and maybe the freebie as well that you mentioned in the description. And feel free to also subscribe to Mindset Over Matter so you don't miss out on more amazing episodes like the one we had today with Andrea. So thank you one more time, and take care.